Folks, happy Friday and welcome to the Freedom from the Press podcast. My name is Jason Robertson and I'm here with my partner in crime,
Todd Peterson. Thanks for joining us, folks. Happy Friday out there. And we have so many. Jason, we are right. It turns out we are right the entire time. We have got to go through the list. KJP says it out loud. Yeah, they initiated a coup on Joe Biden. Oh, turns out the media was covering up Joe Biden's senility. Oh, man, what a glorious day. The Trump effect is in full swing. We're allowed to say this on Facebook, and we're not afraid of anything happening to us.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And the media narrative, trust in the media is just falling apart. President Trump isn't even allowing some of them in the press room. I couldn't be happier with how this is going. Oh, we got to find the cover of that Jake Tapper book too, just to show the hypocrisy. But before we get started, folks, we want to thank everybody for tuning in to the Freedom from the Press podcast. Todd and I are here every Friday from about 10 o'clock Central to 11:30. Last half hour, we do Rumble only. Shout out to our Rumble fans, too. We got K-Gun Girl. We got Paul Reese, one of our original subscribers. And K-Gun Girl, hope Jason is feeling better. Had a surgical procedure yesterday on a kidney stone. Turns out I'm going to need a second one. A little painkillered up, so if we get a little spicier than usual, I apologize. Thanks for folks. A lot of people sent me some notes saying hope I was okay. And made it through. Thank God. Shout out to my loving wife, Jen, best wife ever. Took good care of me as I'm crabby. And I got to say, Todd, when they say we're going to put a camera and laser all the way up you to your kidney and then blast your kidney stone, it is just as awful as you would think.
I will say one thing, though, Jason. Never apologize for being spicy.
No. If I start slurring my words, and just a warning, if I get too sloppy and we have to log off early, that's why.
So. Jason might just get up and leave, and that's okay. He just needs to lay down, but the show will go on. But I love all the thoughts. Jason, we have a great community. Everyone wishing you well. I was trying not to think about you yesterday as they were doing unspeakable things to your body.
Yeah, and it's funny, too. Like, I turned 50, and it's like your car when you hit the 100,000-mile checkup, and you got like 12 things you got to get done. So it's don't get old, folks, and we got an old audience, so they can relate.
They'll probably tell you their own horror stories.
Yeah. Hey, before we go into this stuff, Todd, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't share our dissatisfaction about the Epstein thing yesterday.
I got to be honest. I expected Donald Trump to disappoint me at some point, and this isn't to say that the Epstein files won't get released in the next 4 years or the Diddy files that we were promised. But for him to announce they're coming out, and for Bondi to say they're coming out, and for Anna Paulina Luna out there saying, I'm looking into this, they're going down to Dallas for the JFK files and all this nonsense. And then the moment has come, it's passed, we don't have anything. I don't know, Jason, I kind of expected this. And their excuses were redacting the names of victims and want to make sure there's no victims' names in there. And it's like, I think you can do that pretty easily.
Yeah, I was kind of in surgery and doped up and knew it was coming. And then yesterday afternoon, evening, I was logging on to see kind of what happened. And I was like, yeah, I'll say it. I mean, it's day 36 or whatever, the Trump presidency. That was a letdown. They missed the ball on that one. I'm still waiting for the full January 6 files. Like we were promised that like a year ago. Trump has made a lot of promises. He is a commander in chief and I support him. So we're going to give him plenty of runway to address it, release additional files, that sort of thing. But if you're like me and you're like, okay, we've already seen most of this information that's been released. It's been in various court cases. Normies might not have seen it because they don't follow stuff as closely. But yeah, that was a flop. And I hope Team Trump recovers. So
yeah, Kagan Girl this is what I was thinking too. So Kagan Girl writes over on Rumble, folks, if you're watching on Facebook, head over to Rumble, go to the American Tribune. What I don't understand is she acts like she had read it and knew what was in it. And then all of a sudden she acts like she doesn't have the information. Like Kash Patel, I think we've done clips on the podcast. He said the same thing. He said he's read the 9/11 files. He's read the JFK files. I think Trump said he read the JFK files when he was on Rogan's podcast. So it's knowable. It's out there. Why aren't you releasing it? I think a lot of Trump supporters are disappointed today.
Yeah, and like I say, I see, they brought in influencers to give them the binders, and that was a little cringe. And yeah, people that are rightfully asking questions. I mean, Pam said, "Oh, I got the file on my desk." Well, no, you didn't have the file on your desk.
Because now
And we've
you're
all
asking the
seen those.
FBI to give you the file. Yeah, which one is it here?
Right. Yeah. Now, and the FBI office in New York looks like they're corrupt as heck, which we've known. Maybe this was all something to go after them, but yeah, I just thought we should probably touch on that for a few minutes before we got into some
I'm
fun.
glad you did. And my thing too, I understand we've been celebrating the lack of leaks in the Trump administration, and they're probably getting threatened with like death sentences. Like Guantanamo would be good for someone that releases the Epstein files illegally, like leaks it out to the media or just drops it on the internet and says, "Hey, Grok, go ahead and summarize every point here." I'm surprised no one's getting this out there, and I'm sure they have a gun to their head, and I mean that literally. But it would be nice if one patriot was just like, "This is for the good of the American people."
Right. Yeah. Hey, shout out Dee Dee joined the chat. We got Barry and Nancy over on the Facebook. And yeah, I think there is a chance we'll never see what's in some of these files, because I think like the JFK files, if it's really shown that our intelligence community killed the president, I think that would have pretty disastrous effects. Same thing with Epstein. It seems to have hit a lot of people, a lot in the intelligence community. I can see where we won't get the full picture, and that makes me sad. And like I say, it makes me sad because they promised they'd show it to us. So
that's really it. If they had said we can't, you would have been disappointed. But the thing is, we already assume our government murdered JFK. We
Right.
already know Epstein blackmailed with sexual deviancy all of our politicians. Like, we basically get the gist. Is it the certain names they want to hide? Is it the level of sexual deviancy that they're trying to hide? Like, oh my God, they actually engage in this behavior in Washington, D.C. I don't know. I guess I'm just going to assume the worst at this point. And I don't know, Jason, is Trump's name on the list? Is that part of this?
Well, we've covered it on the American Tribune Substack, where Trump, when Epstein first came on the scene, before everybody knew what he was up to, he was hanging around Mar-a-Lago, and him and Trump flew on each other's planes a couple times. And then Donald Trump actually was famous for barring Epstein from Mar-a-Lago first. And then he actually helped in the prosecution of him, because he was prosecuted once before the second bust in Florida for child trafficking. So Donald Trump's name is on it, but like it's in an entirely different context. Every rich, famous person in New York and Florida and whatnot were associated with him before they knew what he was up to. So
yeah, and then I guess I'll bookend this comment here. If you have anything else, go for it. I never care what it is, but I always expect the truth. That's the least you could do. Yeah, I've been very consistent. People on X are like, Trump's name's in there, right? Like, I don't care. Like, I just want to see the list. I don't care who is on there. I just want to see the list. Let us know.
Yep. Well, with that, we should probably move over to the media, because I think this underscores this Epstein story better than anything. There was a time where we believed we had a media that would dig into things like Epstein, and they would try to get to the bottom of what's going on. And we like that was the purpose of the free and fair press, right? Was that they would expose this. And to me, this Jake Tapper, like the book title called Original Sin, President Biden's Decline, Its Cover Up, and His Disastrous Choice to Run Again by Jake Tapper and some other clown. This underscores how awful and corrupt our media is. And this is why we don't trust the government. This is why we don't trust the media. All of this. Todd, when you saw Jake was writing a book, what did you think?
I mean, this is just one more example of media gaslighting and lying to you. They lied the first time when they covered it up, and they're lying to you now that they're like, look at us reporting on the cover up of Joe Biden, like trying to win back your trust. Like, the lack of self-awareness, I honestly think they think they're doing a service here. Like, we got to do better. Jake Tapper is looking at his media cronies. They're like, oh, they lied about Joe Biden. He actually thinks he's doing us a service by releasing this book and letting us know what's going on. It's like, no, we knew about this the whole time. Jake Tapper himself, and we have clips of Tapper in just a second here, lying about all this. But the cover-up of Joe Biden's decline, Tapper did that. He did that. We have clips of him doing that, and now he's writing a book to tell us he did that, but he's trying to exonerate himself. Like, I don't even know the angle here. I can't believe a single person will buy this book.
Oh, I want to buy it to see how he justifies his actions, because I'm sure, Todd, he's going to say, I was complicit. I was one of the liars too, right? And don't you think that's how it's
I
going to
don't
go?
think so. I think what they say, this was what they did during the pandemic. We didn't know any better at the time. We were getting bad information. They are literally going to give themselves a free pass for all of the egregious, blatant lies. And their excuse is always, we did the best we could with the information we had, didn't know any better. Now we've learned. Here's us admitting our own mistakes. We're human. You can trust us. Donald Trump, he lies all the time. Blah, 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 blah. But we're the media. We're trying to do better. I guarantee I just wrote the entire book for you.
You did. Well, and actually, it's funny. So if you go back in time, 2019, when Democrats were having a hard time getting a nominee that they thought they could beat Trump, they landed on Joe Biden. Joe Biden was a late entry to the race. James Clyburn endorsed him, which meant instead of a crap showing like some lunatic like Liz Warren being the nominee, you got Joe Biden. Joe Biden, when he declared he was running for president, it was because Donald Trump called white supremacists fine people in Charlottesville. That should have ended his political campaign right there, because that's a lie. We've documented that on the show. That was an edited clip. That was not true. So right from the start, the media should have just rolled this guy. But no, they didn't. And he was cognitively declined in 2019. And then somehow 2020 shenanigans happens. He's elected. And one of our first episodes on this podcast, like 2 years ago, was we were betting how long does Joe Biden drop out before he declares to run again, or is it after? Who replaced him? We did a whole hour and a half episode on who Joe Biden's replacement is going to be over 2 years ago. And the reason we did that is because we watched the C-SPAN clips. We watched what few interviews he gave. We watched his few engagements with the press. We saw them handing him questions. Here's the question. Hey, Joe, here's your list. Who you call on, in what order, and here's your answer. The man was mentally unfit. Anybody with 2 brain cells they could rub together could have drawn the conclusion he was mentally unfit. But the media lied and gaslit you and said, yeah, no, Joe Biden's fine. It was insane.
And they would have kept the lies up. Make no mistake. They would have continued the cover up here. This whole book wouldn't have been written had it not been for his poll numbers. And Jason, I feel like we always have to bring this up too. They did the debate in June, unprecedented. We'd always waited for conventions to play out, nominate your nominees for the Republicans and Democrats. Because his handlers knew he was doing so poorly and his poll numbers were low, they said, let's just get him on stage so we can all admit, and we'll admit out loud. We'll say, look, Joe Biden's not well anymore. Then we can push him out in what KJP now admits is a soft coup. She says in her own words, I can't wait to play the clip, Jason, that there was a firing squad up against Joe Biden against the wall with all the regime hacks, basically kicking him out. Again, they ran the debate so that they could admit to you that they'd been lying in a kind of subtle way. I can't believe that happened. I still can't believe all this played out as they're telling you to defend democracy. Trump's a threat to democracy. They did the least democratic thing possible, and people still watch CNN. People still vote for Democrats. I don't know how to wake all these people up. I always wonder, like, who are these people out there?
Yeah, and it was fascinating too, because I remember back 2 years ago, having lunch. I have friends that are Democrats. And like, man, Joe Biden's falling apart. They're like, no, he's not. You're a right-wing conspiracy theorist, right? And I'm like, no, dude, like, people, when they get old, they get in their 80s, all of a sudden they fall off a cliff. And we've all seen it. You've all had friends or relatives that got old. And it was like, it is not this gradual decline. It is like off a cliff. And Joe Biden was clearly going off the cliff mentally. We showed videos of him falling off the bike. And it was funny. We would clip these videos from C-SPAN with no editing, other than Todd would do an intro, and we would play them on Facebook, and they would fact check us. This video is edited or manipulated or whatever. And we literally would just clip, a minute and a half off C-SPAN of him talking and put it on there. It was the most ridiculous thing ever. And I remember after our episode, I was just joking with some buddies that voted for Joe Biden. And I'm like, oh yeah, so who are they going to replace him with? And they're like, oh, they're not going to replace him. I'm like, okay, the Democrat Party stole the nomination from Bernie in 2016. Like, that whole shenanigan, like Party of Democracy stole from Bernie. Okay. Joe Biden, you did it a little more legit because you just installed him and then the whole apparatus got behind him. Tulsi Gabbard, oh, by the way, who was the 3rd most popular Democrat, they wouldn't even let on the debate stage. Like, I mean, Tulsi could have been the Democrat nominee in 2020 if they would have run a fair, primary, but they didn't do it. And then all of a sudden, legacy media jumps in. And Todd, do we go into Jake Tapper, what he was saying?
We sure do. And I want to touch on Nancy Jackson's comment. Thanks for watching over on Facebook, Nancy. Check out Rumble, go to the American Tribune. But everything the left did was by design for years. I want to recap in 60 seconds the entire Biden campaign presidency. From the beginning, it was so obvious what was happening. They hand-selected Joe Biden to be the nominee in 2020 because he was unoffensive. The media was able to portray him, I should say, as unoffensive, very bland, very vanilla, name recognition against the more, bloviating Donald Trump, very loud and outspoken. Here's Joe Biden, who could present himself as just an elder statesman. So the media ran cover on that, covered up his senility, absolutely covered up his corruption. They told you the laptop from hell wasn't real. There was a hallmark of Russian disinformation. It was all by design. He was simply the vehicle to delude regular Americans that were brainwashed enough to think, oh, I don't like Donald Trump. He says things that are mean or loud or he tweets. So here's Joe Biden, who we can just run through, and for 4 years was absolutely useless, was mentally unwell the entire time, and they would have kept at it if not for the poll numbers, the economy, the border, and the wars. And so that was all it was. They would have continued with Joe Biden, make no mistake, except enough Americans woke up and they figured, hey, we can brainwash a new wave of Americans. Kamala Harris, you love her. Remember how you didn't love her in 2020 and don't love her as a vice president? Well, forget that. You love her now. And so they tried it one more time. They figured fresh face, new lies. It didn't stick. And so now the media is just like, how can we win back legitimacy? How can we win back people's trust? Let's pretend that we never said anything about cover-ups. And let's call ourselves out and pretend that we're doing this in an impartial way. Oh.
Well, and it's funny, too, because Joe Biden, he was awful. And
he's an awful human being.
Even when he was healthy, he shouldn't have been president. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden they're trotting him out like he's some great guy. And that was embarrassing. And then Kamala Harris, I mean, just think, we covered it on the show. 1 million. Well, how many million people was it, Todd, that voted for Kamala Harris? Like, you saw
60
the
million?
mentally. What's that?
Was it 60 million?
It was a lot.
Million?
Yeah. And I mean, think of that. Like, how did that even happen? Oh, it's crazy. Hey,
right,
should we hit the Tapper video?
We
I
were
can
looking
check
here,
something quick.
Oh, go for it. All right, here is Jake Tapper. We got a list here. We got Tapper talking about how he's reporting honestly about Biden's health. I got Joe Scarborough telling you it's the best version of Biden ever. I've got KJP calling all of these cheap fakes. But sure, Jake Tapper wants to write a book and tell you how the media covered up Joe Biden's decline. Here's Jake Tapper.
Is very clearly a cognitive decline.
Okay.
That's what I'm referring to. It makes me uncomfortable.
You have no I can't. That's so amazing. It's so amazing to me that
try and figure out an answer.
A cognitive decline.
Well, you're trying to tell me that what I was suggesting was.
I think that you were mocking his stutter. Yeah, I think you were mocking his stutter.
All right, I got to pause it right there because that's the line that they used. Joe Biden was just a kid with a stutter, and sometimes when he's, I don't know, nervous or senile, his stutter comes back out. If you question Joe Biden's health, it's because you were mocking his disability. That was the go-to line there. This is a perfect clip to remind you of the lies that they told. But Jake Tapper is astounded you would dare question Joe Biden's health. No, he is fine. You're making fun of his stutter. Stop talking. You're a conspiracy theorist. This is the guy that wrote the book about how the media covered up Joe Biden's health and wants you to take him seriously.
I think you have absolutely no standing to diagnose somebody's cognitive decline. I would think that.
God, this clip is so good. Remember when they had psychologists just look at a video clip of Donald Trump in his first term and they said, that man's not well. I can diagnose him from halfway around the world. And that was legitimate. But now, again, you call out their guy. Oh, you can't do that. Are you qualified to do that? Are you a doctor? You can't make fun of Joe Biden's mental decline. You don't know him. The double standard, again, it's not a double standard. It's hierarchy. It's our power versus your power. And they're going to go for it every time.
Somebody in the Trump family would be more sensitive to people who do not have medical licenses diagnosing politicians from afar. Plenty of people have diagnosed your father from afar, and I'm sure it offends you.
To be clear, it does not offend us. It was ridiculous that you would have some woke far-left communist psychologists just try to make up a claim about Donald Trump's fitness. No, we were not offended. We thought it was insane. But here's Tapper. Again, all they can do is deflect and lie and project.
Well, and here's what I love. Todd pointed out one key thing. they love to trot out somebody with a fancy name or degree and say this person has no political motive. So this person is just operating above board, saying what's happening, right? And like these doctors or psychiatrists or whatever who are far left activists who think Donald Trump is Hitler, like they're going to give a fair assessment of his skills. And at what point, how many times do doctors, medical professionals need to be proven incorrect for people to wake up and say, you know what, maybe some of these guys aren't always right? But anybody with two brain cells to rub together could look at Joe Biden, not able to complete a sentence, and make the determination this is not a stutter. This is a very unwell man who is falling apart mentally. And there's a reason he doesn't do his first press appearance till after 10, and he doesn't do one after 3. And I mean, we even showed videos when he traveled around the world and he pooped himself. It's like, come on, this guy is insane.
Jason, this is my go-to question now as we reflect on the 60 million Harris voters, 64 million. I don't even know what the number is. It was 60 million too many as far as I'm concerned. If you are confronted, let's just say this story. I did an entire 2.5 episode podcast on my other channel, The American Tribune Live, where we did 2.5 hours of debunking Trump hoaxes. Like if you're confronted with this story, you're like, okay, Jake Tapper lied about covering up mental decline of Joe Biden. We got Morning Joe in just a second, KJP in just a second, calling him chief fakes. You're confronted with that. You have to admit to yourself that, yes, they lied to me. My question is, if they're willing to lie to you about that, what else did they lie to you about? I don't understand how the dominoes don't just fall for regular Americans. They lie. This is a massive lie. I think the biggest cover-up of Biden's entire presidency, the largest lie they told was his mental decline. And if you're now having to face that, okay, they lied to me about that. Turns out Joe Biden wasn't healthy. What else are they lying to you about? How does not every honest American, intellectually honest American, start wondering that and then think, okay, let me look into this. Oh, turns out they lied about Charlottesville. I'd never seen the full clip before. Turns out they lied about Russian collusion. They lie to you about everything. I'm just going to cut to the chase, TLDR. But if you're honest with yourself, why don't you ask yourself that question?
Right.
Okay.
Well, and that's where we often encourage our audience to share our content with people they might not politically agree with. You know, you have friends, you have normie Democrats. We're not talking about the blue-haired cat lady. We're talking about normal people that voted Democrat who plugged their nose and voted for Kamala Harris. I don't know how you can ever trust these guys. And it's funny. So Todd and I run a business together, Freedom from the Press, the American Tribune, and we have business partners. And our scaling from when we work with people is like, do we trust them? And as soon as somebody erodes that trust, we had one guy we used to work with who, we found out was doing stuff behind our back. And we're like, we just can't do business with this person anymore. I don't care if they apologize. I don't care what. They did something they knew was wrong. They knew was malicious. I would rather work with somebody less skilled or whatnot, that's honest, that you can do business with. But your media should be the same. And they didn't just cover up one story, miss one fact. They didn't get it right. This was a repeated behavior over years. And if you know the president is cognitively impaired and you are sitting on that, I have no idea what greater sin the media could commit. And they've committed a lot. They've committed crimes that are worth going to Gitmo for, in my opinion, for how they've torn apart this country. But if you know the elected president of the United States is mentally collapsing and nobody's doing anything about it, and you're coming out after the fact, that is insane. And all these people should be fired. All these people should be charged criminally. And the people that went after independent journalists like Todd and I are independent podcasters and said we were kooks and they fact checked us and they lied about us, like they should be held accountable. And folks, that's why it's important you support independent media or voices like ours, because we just do this. We're just two guys. We are not some PhD in anything, but we're smart enough to watch video clips, to read bills, to read laws, and come in here and tell you guys about it. And yeah, we love the community that we're building too. Although, where's Fally and Kev?
We're missing a few today. Yeah, our only agenda is, our bias is we hate the media. We do not trust it at all. We think everyone should feel that way. Don't like the government. Don't trust the government. That's it. That is our only bias coming into this program. We're just trying to expose the absolute lies that they tell. And if they were just wrong, wouldn't they be wrong in your advantage, like your direction sometimes? Like half the time, if we're flipping a coin, like, okay, we got this story wrong, but we got that story right. They are wrong every single time. You can only conclude it as intentional misdirection. They are lying to you on purpose. You can't come to any other conclusion. That's it. They are lying, knowingly lying. It is mendacious and evil what they're doing. This is not just people that didn't do their homework, didn't research it thoroughly. No, they are just lying to you every single day.
Yeah, and shout out to Vicky over on the Facebook. Only brainwashed Democrats bought their BS. That's the thing, though, Vicky. Half of America bought that. And I don't understand. Like, how can you see a clip of Joe Biden and go, oh, yeah, that's great. And, oh, no, the people in the talking box. My dad watches CNN and MSNBC. And I'm just like, Dad, we can't even have a conversation. Like, these people are lying to you. Now he's going to be like, oh, that darn Joe Biden. Dad, the same guy that wrote the book covered it up.
I made a comment on X. The Babylon Bee wouldn't even have come up with this parody. They're beyond parody. See, the Babylon Bee, if they were trying to come up with a funny headline like Jake Tapper, biggest promoter of Biden's, cover-up, writes a book on the cover-up, like they wouldn't do that because even that's too absurd for the Babylon Bee. But Jake Tapper literally wrote a book on how the media covered up Joe Biden's health, as you just saw him cover up Joe Biden's health.
It doesn't even make sense.
All right.
Should we play the other?
Well, I found another oldie but goodie. I feel like Jake Tapper is something else, but Morning Joe, Jason, you're going to remember this clip. Here's the best version of Joe Biden ever.
But comparing that guy's mental state, I've said it for years now. He's cogent. But I undersold him when I said he was cogent. He's far beyond cogent. In fact, I think he's better than he's ever been. Intellectually.
All right, I'm going to pause this right here again to set up this video. This is like April of last year. This was right before they ran Joe Biden off in a coup. This is now, they are admitting, just understanding the context now, Jake Tapper admits in his book that the media all covered up Joe Biden's health, and then listen to Morning Joe's description of Joe Biden being the best he's ever been. And you're going to trust the media after this?
Analytically, because he's been around for 50 years. And, I don't know if people know this or not. Biden used to be a hothead. Sometimes that Irishman would get in front of the reasoning. Sometimes he would say things he didn't want to say. This is, and I don't really, you know what? I don't really care. Start your tape right now, because I'm about to tell you the truth. And F you if you can't handle the truth.
F you if you can't handle it.
This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever.
I have no words, Jason. Again, in the context of what we just dropped at the start of the show, Jake Tapper writing a book about how the media covered up Joe Biden, the certitude that this man spoke with, the confidence. How dare you? F you if you don't believe what I'm saying right now. This is the best version of Joe Biden ever. Is there a better clip out there to show how much the media hates you and hates the truth and will just lie to your face?
Now, Todd, I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second. Are you ready for this?
Oh, man. I'm already sitting down, Jason. Fire away.
All right. Maybe Morning Joe is right. Maybe the 83-year-old, mentally impaired, cognitively declined Joe Biden is really the best Joe Biden we've ever had. Maybe he was so mentally impaired that he couldn't do anything, that he couldn't say anything. So maybe that is the best. Like Joe Biden at 10% capacity from what he used to do means he can't do as many dumb things as he used to do. So that will be Morning Joe's defense, is he'll say, wait. I never said Joe Biden was cognitively there. I just said it was the best Joe Biden version ever. But the old Joe Biden version was so awful, even the mentally retarded one. I made it 30 minutes before
that was the Oxy speaking, Jason. I'll give you
it was the Oxy speaking. But even that version of Joe Biden was the best ever. Maybe that's true. And honestly, I got to say, too, I had mentioned on the start of the show, so as part of my pain regimen, they gave me some Oxy Cotton. a couple days before my surgery. And I got to say, the first time I took it, like I've been in kidney pain for months. I took it and I walked down to see Jen, my wife, in the kitchen. And I just had this big dopey grin on my face. And she's like, "Oh, your pill must have kicked in, huh?" I'm like, "Oh yeah. I don't take painkillers much or whatnot. I can see how people get hooked on that stuff. And any controls they put on it is justified. Oxycontin, like you can't feel your face and you see colors. It's incredible."
Good stuff. Actually, Jason, I want to go back to your comments about it was the best version. Maybe the previous versions, I understand that Joe Biden sold out his entire career, but because he was in charge, maybe he thought he was managing the situation. Maybe in the context of everyone can just steamroll Joe Biden. Anybody that wanted an ounce of power in the White House now had access to that because Joe Biden didn't have any faculties. So maybe in the sense of the establishment controlling the presidency more than it ever has before, maybe that was the best version because maybe the unelected bureaucracy got to do whatever it wanted with a declining Joe Biden. So who knows? For all we know, Joe Biden with Joe Scarborough was actually speaking some truth in there, just not the way we thought it was.
Yeah, and I gotta say that's what's fun about the media. Like he tells a perfectly crafted lie, which is this is the best version of Joe Biden. Now he's not saying Joe Biden's not insane or not crazy, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we have one more. I had to pull up this one too. This wasn't originally on the playlist here, but you don't hate them enough, folks. I can't believe we have KJP clips coming back, but listen to this.
There seems to be a sort of rash of videos that have been edited to make the president appear especially frail or mentally confused. I'm wondering if the White House is especially worried about the fact that this appears to be a pattern that we're seeing more often.
Yeah, and I think you all have called this the cheap fakes video, and that's exactly what they are. They are cheap fakes video. They are done in bad faith, and some of your news organization have been very clear, have stressed that these the right wing critics of the president have a credibility problem because
we have a credibility problem.
Right wing.
Right wing.
Edited. Doctored.
Cheap fix. And again, it's the confidence with which she says it so convincingly. If you see a video of Joe Biden stumbling, falling down, tripping upstairs, losing his train of thought, mumbling, A, it's because he has a stutter, but B, it's because they're cheap fakes. Joe Biden is great.
And let's make this point too. This woman was with Joe Biden as much as anybody was with Joe Biden. Like morning, noon, and night. Like the press secretary generally travels and is in the meetings. So that is almost like Joe Biden's secretary, to use an analogy. So it's not like she just didn't really run into him very often or anything like that. She was in it all the time. It's insane.
Okay, just straight up lying to you. Straight up lying to you. All right, I think we got one more Tapper clip here. This is JD Vance sitting down, calling him out on those lies. And again, this was before the book was getting published, so Jake Tapper was going to continue with those lies.
Guys talked about the Russia hoax nonstop.
The FBI was investigating it. The FBI was investigating it. So we covered them.
And so you took the words of unnamed FBI agents and put them on your network as if they were the gospel truth. You did it again and again. A viewer of your network would have believed that Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin conspired in 2016.
No.
That was totally and preposterously false.
No.
Well, that's
what you just said is
why.
false. President Trump has gone to, quote, extraordinary lengths to keep specifics about his meetings with Russian President Vladimir Putin secret, even keeping them from top members of his own administration. Take a listen to how President Trump responded Saturday night when asked directly if he has ever worked for Russia.
I think it's the most
I just have to pause. Again, this is back in time, the first administration. That was actually a real question that they were asking. What's going on in your meetings with Russia? Conspiring with Russia. They actually thought to ask that question.
Right. And people
insulting thing I've ever been asked. I think it's the most insulting article I've ever had written.
The president did not directly answer the question.
Ooh, so he's guilty.
He didn't answer the question, Todd.
Do you remember how many questions Joe Biden answered?
Right. Todd, when you beat your wife, what happened?
She fell down the stairs.
Right. Todd refused to answer the question. He must be guilty.
Yeah, JD. Oh, I was going to go to King Girl. JD is sharp. JD is so good. I guess I'm already on like 2028 JD Vance for president. He's really good.
Yeah. Let's finish the Tapper.
it's a stunning turn of events. Do you think the president of the United States ever worked on behalf of the Russians against American interests?
What a question to ask. Now, here's what's funny. And I don't know if you've encountered this in your friend group or online, but I still have. So, like, I have a bunch of Democrat friends. I still have a couple Democrat buddies that believe the media, that think Donald Trump is a Russian agent. I post funny stuff on my personal Facebook page, like Golf of America pictures and stuff, like trying to keep it light. I posted the video about where they went through some of the stuff Doge found, like where Trump was reading off the list of 20 things. And I had like people I know that are functioning adults with jobs that raise kids that were on there. Well, Donald Trump's a puppet of Putin, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you really still believe the Putin hoax? And I don't even know what reality these people are living in. It's insane.
Absolutely insane. Yeah. It's funny though. We just did a video commentary. There's an article up today at theamericantribune.com how Representative James Comer reads off a list. We've got bank statements, bank accounts. You can see the checks get deposited. You got the money coming in. Joe Biden, it looks like, cashed a check for $3.5 million from, guess where, Jason? Russia.
No
and
way.
You're telling me you're running with this entire narrative of Donald Trump and Putin conspired, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, we have millions of dollars in Joe Biden's bank accounts, or one of his bank accounts, or however they have that set up. Don't fact check me, Facebook. I don't know the details. Russian money, Joe Biden, but sure, Donald Trump and Putin.
Yeah, and I mean the hypocrisy comparing Donald Trump, who's a legitimate businessman, who does legitimate business with multiple people, to the Joe Biden crime syndicate, where the guy sets up 17 LLCs, employs all his family members. All this money comes and goes between these 17 LLCs, so you can't track it. Money's going to kids and grandkids and nieces and nephews and Joe, and they're paying Joe's bills off of it. And they're like, nothing to see here. Where's your proof? And like the Democrats, unless they see a Russian oligarch walk up to Joe Biden with a check that says bribe in the comment section and hands it to him, they don't think it's a real thing. Oh, my God.
We got Kev early today. Good morning, Kev.
Speak of the devil. We got Kev. What's going on?
Folks,
I got to say, someday on Rumble Only, we got to do like a split screen, like subscriber only, where we get Paul and K-Gun Girl Kev. Although we got to get those guys to subscribe. It's $5 a month, guys. Go hit the button. And then we just do like an open panel discussion. Like, I think that would be so fun.
That would be great. And if you're watching on Facebook, Jason, we have a huge Facebook following. We get tons of comments and tons of viewers. But folks, if you are on Facebook right now and you see all the special accolades, attention, the shout outs going to our Rumble audience, join our growing Rumble community. Go to the American Tribune. We do Rumble only sections. There's a special place in our heart for our Rumble audience here. So if you're on Facebook, thank you for watching. Head over to Rumble, though. Get the app on your phone and search out the American Tribune. Oh, and Jason, we got my man Robert, my YouTube Robert over here. At what point does Jake Tapper's extreme grifting become flat-out treason? Robert, thanks for asking the question. Thanks for tuning in. We kind of addressed this. I think Jason and I have said it has happened. That line has been crossed, and he belongs in Gitmo today.
Yeah, I think, hey, shout out Robert over on the YouTube. And just to explain, too, why we like Rumble so much is Rumble doesn't censor speech. So this Facebook video, for those who are watching on here, I'll get some notification a day, 2 days, a week later, and I'll have to delete the podcast because, like I said, the R word, or we said something silly on there. Rumble is the last free speech platform. Same even with YouTube, where Todd will post video on there, and all of a sudden it'll be, okay, well, we got to delete that one. Rumble's never done that. We've been on Rumble now for a few years. And like, you don't make as much money as you do, on other video platforms if you share your videos, but they let us say what we want to say. That's why we do the Rumble only section. But yeah, Robert, just so you understand why we call this Freedom from the Press podcast, I think the press is the enemy of the people. I think the press has a core role to inform Americans with what's going on. They should try to keep the opinion out. But at a bare minimum expectation for all the rights and privileges the press is given, they should tell the truth. They should not lie. Jake Tapper here, we've shown now for a half hour, Jake Tapper lying about things. And in this case, he lied about the cognitive ability of the president of the United States. There is no, like, if anybody gets sent to Gitmo, I am fine with Jake Tapper being one of the first on the list.
Yeah, I wish I could disagree. I don't. If I could have had to choose one, it would be Jake Tapper. And I've kind of been saying I want the Trump admin to go after one woke Dem resisting the illegal immigration deportations and crackdowns. If they go after one media personality, I'm fine with that. Just set an example. The others will get in line. Let's make it Jake Tapper.
Jake Tapper's in. Oh, God. Where do we go next, Todd? Do we go to KJP?
I think we got to pivot to KJP. So, folks, this just in. Joe Biden was removed from the ballot after the premature June debate. They installed Kamala Harris. Not a single Democrat voted for her in the primary process. Not a single American ever wanted her whenever she ran for a national office. They did not want her in 2020. They disliked her to the extreme, and that's saying a lot because they had the entire media apparatus to prop her up when she was vice president. Nobody liked her. But then Joe Biden, his health became an issue. We were allowed to talk about it after the debate. His polling was low, so something had to give. And Jason and I called it from the beginning. Joe Biden would not run for re-election. I think we were wrong. We thought he would probably die in office or get removed in office 25th. Kamala becomes the first woman president. But now they're admitting what we said all along and got labeled as conspiracy theorists, that it in fact was a coup against Joe Biden. Jason, 2 KJP.
And let's think about this too. Why did they time it the way they did? They ran the primary. There was actually a primary going on. Dean Phillips, House Representative from Minnesota, one of the heirs of the Phillips vodka thing. If you ever got liquored up on cheap Phillips vodka, he's from Minnesota. He was in the House. He dropped out after this round. Marianne Williamson, who's a nut. Like, she'll
run every 4 years, though. We love her.
God love her. She's a crystal lady. And who was the other guy running for the Democrat nominee?
And they wouldn't let him go anywhere. RFK Jr. tried to run for president as Democrat just 1 year ago.
Right. So think of it. You have RFK Jr. You have, you could have had Tulsi Gabbard if they didn't run her off, but they were trying to run a primary and the Democrat establishment said, no, no, no. Now, Todd, if they ran an open primary, would Kamala Harris have been the nominee?
Absolutely not. Nope.
I don't even think, it was funny because I was going back looking at posts from before when we did that episode. Everybody agreed 3 weeks before Joe dropped out in that debate that Kamala was worse and she wouldn't be the nominee. So, this was not. So the party of democracy, who's fighting for your democracy, waits as late as they can. They don't run a primary. Joe Biden gets the nomination. Then they do the debate. Then they kick him out. Oh, my God. Shout out to Dee Dee. Dee Dee just subscribed. Giddy up. Thanks, Dee Dee.
Thank you.
Yeah, and someday we're going to have to do that subscriber-only idea, Todd. Doesn't that sound fun?
I would have a blast with that.
Oh, my God. I want to get, Fally and Dee Dee, on their smartphones, ranting on the internet. That'd be a blast. All right.
Here we go. KJP. Again, sorry in advance, folks. You thought you were done with KJP. Now we have 2 videos
and
today.
This just came out.
Yeah, this is a new one. This came out yesterday.
I think what was the toughest thing to see in the 3 weeks was there was a disconnect for me. What was happening with leadership in the Democratic Party and how it was truly, as my former colleague, communications director, Ben LeBolt said, it was a firing squad. And I had never seen anything like it before. I'd never seen a party do that in the way that they did.
She must not have been around in 2016 when the party did that to Bernie Sanders, too.
Right.
Then politics are corrupt. What do I know?
What do we do?
And it was hurtful and sad to see that happening. A firing squad around a person who I believe was a true patriot, a person who I believe did everything that he can for this country, a person who I believe, as I mentioned before, has done more in one term than most presidents had done in 2 terms, historical things. And I was shocked by what I was seeing.
And Karine, just to clarify, these are other Democrats and Democratic leadership coming out against Biden.
Yep, I had never seen anything like that. That was, if you're asking me, the thing that I saw in those 3 weeks, that was shocking.
There it is, folks. Again, we were labeled conspiracy theorists. We would get fact-checked. We would use the word coup intentionally. Jason and I didn't just come up with a word because it had strong emotional appeal. It was a literal coup. And KJP is now admitting the same thing, that yes, there was a conspiracy among the Democrat elites saying Joe Biden's too old. We can't cover this up anymore. His polling numbers are atrocious. Nobody likes his policies. So we'll just like put lipstick on a new pig and then try to tell the American people Kamala is going to be different than Joe Biden. Like that still doesn't make sense. Like you're still voting for Democrat. But there it is. They pushed him out in a coup.
Well, and here's what's funny too. Like we covered the Bernie thing in 2016, and I hate Bernie. I think Bernie is a fraud. I think he has the worst political ideas ever. But they could barely stop Bernie, and it involved like the Hillary campaign took on the DNC's debt. They gave her questions. Like they did everything they could. Now, at the end, it came down to, hey, Bernie, how would you like to become a millionaire? We'll give you a book deal. And although that's funny, Todd, just random thought, I wonder if all those book deals are funded by U.S. aid.
Yes.
Right. You know, it's funny, just as I think here, maybe it's the Oxy talking, but I was talking about that on last week's show. Like, suddenly these protests from these political things don't have all the protesters there. And suddenly, like, all the mainstream media is laying off thousands of writers and stuff. Like, we literally funded our own demise by using taxpayer dollars funneling into this left-wing stuff, because I guaranteed your crazy blue-haired cat lady is not giving her money to those organizations. Like
nobody was. I know we always said it was George Soros, boogeyman George Soros. Turns out it was probably just your tax dollars getting redistributed to these corrupt organizations.
Isn't that wild? Like, does the Democrat Party exist without government money being sent to prop it up? It probably doesn't.
Probably not.
But
there's, I can't. I mean, this is not going to make big waves. This will come and go. People are over KJP. They know as soon as she opens her mouth, she's lying. This is still a big admission, though. We witnessed a coup in American politics from the same party that would tell you Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. Wild stuff.
Yeah, and she even like essentially admits the timeline. You know, Kev, I want to know if the big guy sniffed and grew up KJP like everyone else also experienced. I gotta say, Kev, do you really want to know? Like, to me,
do you want to picture that in your brain?
Right. Yeah, you know, I've seen those accusations from Tara Reid when Joe Biden was a young senator and pressed her against the wall and did some funny things. I don't know if I need to see that.
I don't know. How old is KJP too?
I don't know. She's a lesbian too, right?
No.
Yeah, maybe Joe likes.
I don't want to verify that either. All right. This is, I think we got to talk about the meltdowns from federal employees who thought that for their entire lives, they could just collect a paycheck that, Jason, you and I provide. It's our tax dollars paying the entire salary of these federal bureaucrats and these workers, these civil servants. I love the word civil servant. I'm here doing a duty. I don't want to be, but I'm doing it for the good of the country. No, they're collecting a huge paycheck, wonderful pensions, great retirement plan, great health benefits. And now Donald Trump and Elon Musk are actually saying you need to be working. You need to earn that paycheck. I need to see what you're producing. And if you can't justify your job, you won't have a job. I don't know, Jason, if you and I didn't do the podcast every day, didn't write articles on the American Tribune, didn't do commentary on Rumble, I don't think we would have a job because we're not producing anything that generates income. But for the federal employees that have never been held accountable before, they're like, wait, money just doesn't show up?
Well, and I got to say, this is something I'm really passionate about. And I tell the story. I got my first job at Sears, Roebuck and Company on my 16th birthday. I worked in the hardware and the paint department selling Craftsman tools and selling their paint. I'm in the next 30 some years, I became a regional director for retailer in charge of like 300 stores across like 8 states. My first day at Sears, Roebuck and Company, I remember when I showed up, I did orientation, first day on the floor. I had to have my little red vest on. We used to have to wear those, Todd. My little name tag. And then I remember my boss gave me my little checklist. Here's your associate checklist. Like, how many credit cards did you open? Or credit apps did you get? Like, here's your tasks for the day. And then at the end of the day, you know what I had to do with that, Todd?
Did you have to show your manager?
I had to turn it into the manager, and the manager would look and say, oh, so this is what you got done. Oh, they'd offer me a little feedback. Hey, did you try this? Did you try that? You know, I regularly meet with my manager, you know, every week or two, like, hey, Jason, nobody's opened a Sears card for a few weeks. Why don't you tell me how you're presenting it? And they would coach me on different ways to do it. That same principle applied at every level of market that I was, from a part-time guy in the hardware department to a regional director with 15 district managers reporting to me. Every level I was at, I would do routine statuses with my supervisor, and my subordinates would do routine statuses with me. Hey, Jason, here's what I'm working on. Here's what's going on. I always made it a practice. Every Friday, I would just drop my boss a note back when I had a boss, like, hey, you know, here's kind of what we got done last week. Here's what we're going to be our focus for next week. Let me know if you have any thoughts. Because if you don't measure it and manage it, it didn't happen. Now, Todd, we run a business together. What's the first thing I do every morning?
We get data analytics. We're seeing, hey, how did the company do yesterday? We need to know where we're at. We need to know where we're going.
7 days a week, I recap results. And then for everybody that runs their own things, I'll be like, hey, what's your thought on this? What's your thought on that? Like right now, Jackson's working on some clicks aren't tracking on something. So he's checking that. Every single day, we touch base with each other. Hey, here's what's going on with the business. And we even usually do it on the weekends unless somebody's tied up with things. So for those who have worked and this isn't bad, this isn't some bad boss gotcha. Todd and I pay our bills by how this company does, by everybody like Dee Dee that subscribes down in the thing, and Paul, and I forget who else subscribed on there. But like that helps us pay our bills. And then with that, we always touch base on how it's going. That's just the real world, right, Todd?
That's what you do.
Right.
That is just what you do. Should we listen to the federal employee complaining about, wait a minute, I had to justify my job?
That came out wanting us to justify our jobs with 5 things we did last week was on Saturday night. Yeah. And I was literally working on Saturday night to make up for all the distractions I had had the previous week, which came from the executive branch. And so I'm working, trying to catch up on things, and then I get that email on top of it. It's very hard to keep your train of thought when you're getting threatened and harassed like that.
Jason, you told the story about meeting with your Sears Roebuck advisor. I didn't realize you were getting harassed by them when they asked, how did your day go?
Turns out, inquiring about that, I wish I could go back and sue these guys. And let's look at this woman. So first of all, Saturday night, and she admits she's working, right?
Is she?
Who knows? She's sitting at home doing something, getting paid. But then she also says, because of all these distractions for the week, like, I hate to tell you, lady, if you've ever worked for a company, like, the big bosses get to come out and tell you stuff, you know, and then you have till end of day on Monday to respond. And she is traumatized by this. Todd, if I told you, hey, by end of day today, could you give me the top 5 bullet points, what you're working on? How long would that take you?
It would take 1 minute because A, I am working, B, I know what I'm working on, and C, I will tell you what I did. It is not complicated.
It's the simplest thing ever. Now, this woman is so offended and so upset that she has sent the 5 things, her top 5 list, that she takes a day off. This is at this public hearing that she is complaining. In the time it took her to whine on this interview, she could have sent 10 of those emails. And let us know in the comments, folks, how long would it have taken you if you're working, or if you're a housemaker? Like my wife could do her top 5 list of things she's done at work or that she's done around the house. She's taken care of my infirmed ass all week.
And
like,
Jason,
that would not take her long.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think he said, what have you done this week? He asked for 5 things in 1 week, I think. 1 task a day. What is one thing you accomplished in an 8-hour workday? And she is using her time to go to this town hall to protest the gravy train coming to a close here. I don't even get the point of this town hall event. You're going to slam Musk and Doge cuts. What they are advocating for, let me reframe this. We're protesting government corruption coming to an end. That's all this is. You're mad at Donald Trump and Elon Musk for exposing the corruption and putting that to an end. You're saying, I like government corruption here. And Jason, I just got to make a comment. I've tried really hard not to, but I popped a picture of her up again one more time. Doesn't she just look like someone that would be useless in an office? Like, never really had to work hard in her entire life. She's made too good of a living. Like, she has failed upwards in these government roles. I am just so unimpressed with everything I see here.
Well, and Kevin, actually, see, that's why we need Kevin on at the beginning of the show, because he makes such excellent points. But no, he goes and watches Bannon. So we're going to learn since the 80s, liberals can only hold jobs if it's in the government. You see this locally too.
Mm-hmm.
I got to say, it kind of ties into the USAID thing, where if you think about, so if you're a conservative, like, hey, we got to give a shout out to Paul Reese too. Hey, Todd, how do we know Paul Reese from?
Hey, folks, go to splitrockcoffee.com. Use promo code TOD10. You can subscribe and save today to have fresh ground coffee delivered to your doorstep every single month. Don't hassle with the grocery store anymore. Delicious coffee at a great price, and save big when you use promo code TOD10 at splitrockcoffee.com.
Disabled Vet owned and operated, so give a shout out to them. But it's funny. I'll use Paul Reese as an example, and we've done some work with him, helped him with some digital marketing. Paul Reese, other than serving in the military, he's always signed the front of the paycheck, not the back. By that meaning, he's been the business owner and property development and different initiatives. And Paul has produced jobs. Paul has produced output for the economy. I've been a manager in retail, and I've been in digital marketing. I'm a business owner now with Todd. We create jobs for 6 full-time people right now through our organization. We sign the front of paychecks, not the back of paychecks. And we understand every month our paycheck starts at 0, and how much we make is based on how our company does. This woman has not understood accountability or productivity or performance, and it spawns into this whole left-wing ecosystem where you go to school and they teach you non-value added tasks like DEI or whatever reasonable things that don't deliver food, don't clean the trash, don't get the plumbing installed, like all this like idiotic stuff. Then they go create a job for them in the government, which turns out we don't need whatever it is she's doing. Like, and it just, the entire ecosystem only exists based on government assistance and stealing your tax dollars. And with USAID, that continues to be my biggest takeaway. None of these left-wing organizations exist without your tax money getting funneled into them. And it's shocking to think about how much we are funding our own demise by paying for idiots like this. If she had to actually go produce something, if she had to go run a cleaning company, a window washer, if she was in charge of running a laundromat or a bakery or any of those things, she would fail and she would be unemployed.
Yeah, it's not an accident that small business owners vote. I don't want to say Republican because, we have our thoughts about the Republican Party, but tend to be more conservative in their values. I don't think making the small business is what turns you into conservative, although that is true. I think it's just the values of who you are as a person. I don't want to be some just nothing. I want to go make something of myself, contribute to society. Just inherent conservative values that lean you in that direction. And then, again, once you operate a small business, you can never look at taxes the same way. Jason, you and I talked about writing a huge check in April to the government. And if every American, even if this gal right here, her little W-2 salaried position, if there were no withholdings and she had to write a huge check to the government every month, maybe it would change. I don't know. I'm looking at her. She's definitely one of the cat ladies that we talk about on the show. But
I was going to say I can smell the cats on her. Hey, got to give a shout out to Robert, too. He had to take off, had a noon meeting. But a $2 super chat. Thanks, Robert.
Thank you. Thanks, Robert.
We appreciate that. Oh, my gosh. All right. So how do we and Paul, for those who didn't know, Paul's leaving Saturday for a Cleveland trip to finish a coffee deal, going to Azerbaijan. And we're going to hire more people there than ordered. God is good. Yeah, he's doing international coffee deals. Now, here's the thing, Paul. You got to let us know. Are you going to go teach LGBTQIA to the people in Azerbaijan? I think they might really like the tranny stuff. I could be wrong.
I hear they're very open-minded when it comes to that over there.
Right. Yeah. Oh, God. And our chats are just on fire. Like Dee Dee. I always had to do this when I work corporate management and employees as well. I work for a private firm now. Not only could I list 3 things, I could list them daily. And the fact of the matter is, Dee Dee, if you're good at your job, you probably do list them daily. I mean, fun fact, my wife is in a new department in her job. And like last night, she's like, oh, I forgot to recap to my boss what I got done today. Give me a sec. And you know what, Todd? Her boss didn't even ask for recaps. Like, Jen just lets her know they got these big projects she's working on, and she sends her a recap at the end of the day. She actually busted the laptop back out to be like, oh crap, I forgot to update her because they got this big thing due on Friday. It's crazy.
Man, imagine that. Jason, I don't know about you. I feel like the chat's hopping. We don't have very controversial videos here. What if we open up our Rumble only to our Facebook pages today? Let our Facebook audience have a taste of that Rumble only experience. And maybe they would find us over on Rumble after the show to be like, you know what? I enjoyed that extra half hour. Maybe I'll go sign up to your page at the American Tribune.
I don't know. We can try it, but I get pretty spicy. I'm going to drop the R word right away. Let's try it, Todd.
All right,
we're going to take a 60-second break.
Aboard, but here's the deal. After this bonus half hour ends, because we want to be fair to our Rumble only. They went over to Rumble. They thought they were getting exclusive content. You got to go to Rumble too. Go to the American Tribune. Follow the page. Like the content. And then we'll see you in the future on Rumble only. But Facebook audience, this is a treat just for you then. I don't know how to pronounce her name. I botched it all day on my show yesterday. Mary Kaptur. She's part of the Ukrainian Congressional Caucus because it's important to have a Ukrainian Congressional Caucus. She supports the cause in Ukraine, I think, more than the causes in her own district in Ohio. But Jason, she has some fascinating insights on allegiances and loyalty to America if you're an immigrant. This was pretty racist and xenophobic, if you ask me. But folks, I think you just have to listen for yourself. We are now allowed to question the loyalty of immigrants based on how long they've been in this country.
Fascinating.
Mr. Musk has just been here 22 years.
Or no?
Let's just fire away here.
We're just going to fire it in there.
Here, I'm going to start her over. And it's a short little speech here. And you heard she is talking about Elon Musk because, of course, she is. But take a listen to this.
Mr. Musk has just been here 22 years, and he's a citizen of 3 countries. I always ask myself the question, with the damage he's doing here, when push comes to shove, which country is he loyalty to? South Africa? Canada? Or the United States? And he's only been a citizen, I'll say again, 22 years.
I love this video, Jason, because from now on, whenever I question the loyalty of an immigrant or did you come here to be part of the American experiment, live out the American dream, or just come for the tax benefits? Oh, you've only been here for 20 years? I guess you should go home because you're not loyal to this country here. I mean, the things she just said in this clip will be ammunition for the rest of my political career, I think.
Right. Well, and I got to say, we've talked about this a lot more on the Rumble only. I'm going to try not to couch my language when it comes to this, even though we're on a couple platforms that don't like us, Facebook, YouTube, that kind of thing. I think hyphenated Americans are a bunch of crap. I don't care if you're African American, Asian American, if you are whatever American. I think the hyphen sucks. I think the hyphen should go away. If I were president for one day, I'd do away with the hyphen and say you're an American. I would do away with dual citizenship. Because when you join America, you are giving up your responsibilities and your bounds to other countries. Donald Trump, by the way, Will Tanner was tweeting about this earlier. It sounds like he's planning to sign an executive order making English the official language of the United States. I would 100% support that because I think America is unique. When you come to America, you are giving up all these other ties to other countries. So I will agree with this insane woman that Elon Musk should drop the hyphen, should drop his citizenship in other countries if he's going to be an American. In the chat, so no nod to Omar. Ilhan Omar, she can totally go back to Somalia if she wants. If you're in America, you're dedicated to America. Make English the official language of the United States. And you know what? Make it illegal that you have to hit 1 for English, 2 for Spanish, 3 for Czechoslovakian, 4 for Hindu or whatever. Like, there was a time in America where we said, here are the ideals of America. If you want to be a part of that, you sign up for the deal, right? You sign up for freedom, liberty, freedom of speech. You understand we're only giving you an opportunity. We are not giving you free stuff. Like, you are paying your way into here so you can work your butt off to build your future for you and your family. That was the deal. Now you get these people coming from Venezuela that want free government money, and they want to require you to learn their language to teach their children in Venezuelan, And if you so much as make them try to understand American ideals or social practices, you're a bigot. Screw those guys, Todd.
This is the same party that's advocating for birthright citizenship. I think that's going away, Jason. I know he let us down on the Epstein list like we talked about at the start of the show here. I think he's going to do away with birthright citizenship. They would be fine with some young pregnant immigrant coming across the border, dropping a kid. But we have to question Elon Musk's allegiances. You don't think the anchor baby is going to feel more Mexican or more Peruvian or more Venezuelan than they are American just by happening to be born here? So these people can't keep it up. But I had to find this speech from Teddy Roosevelt about hyphenated Americans. I love this speech so much. It's true today as it was over 100 years ago when he said it. I'm just going to read a little bit of the first part here because I love this. There is no room in the country for hyphenated Americanism. When I refer to hyphenated Americans, I do not refer to naturalized Americans. Some of the very best Americans I have ever known were naturalized Americans. Americans born abroad. But a hyphenated American is not an American at all. The one absolutely certain way of bringing this nation to ruin, of preventing all possibility of its continuing to be a nation at all, would be to permit it to becoming a tangle of squabbling nationalities, an intricate knot of, and this was at a different time here, German Americans, Irish Americans, English Americans, French Americans, Scandinavian Americans, or Italian Americans, each preserving its separate nationality. Not a hard concept.
Not a hard concept at all. I will, too, make one point, and then I actually got to jump into some comments in the chat. Protect veterans' jobs. What do you notice in that picture, Todd? Do you notice the lack of crowds?
I see 6 people. I see 0 support for what's happening.
I was going to say, one thing I always look for now when you see these protests like this, as it ties into the U.S. aid, they actually used to have like crowds. They used to have people standing behind them. Now they don't have that. Now I'm sure they're going to tell me, break out my tinfoil hat, it's a conspiracy theory. But I noticed too, when the Senate was protesting, like there was no crowd there. And the only time I'm seeing crowds now is all these workers in DC who vote 97% for the Democrats, who are protesting going back to the office, but they can all go out in the crowd. I'm just saying, something to pay attention to, folks. How many times is there no crowd for these speakers? And then you just say, that's weird.
It is wild. But next time someone says, we can't trust an immigrant, they've only been here 22 years. Yes, correct. Let's deport them all.
And that's what I'm saying. U.S. aid paid for their crowds. Now, I got to say, too, I got to give a shout out. I think Will wrote this one. Sometimes I give Will credit for things you wrote. But they were talking about Ilhan Omar, and then Ilhan Omar, my brother, my husband, my brother, husband. The Omar deal is crazy. All right, for our loyal Rumble audience, I'm going to give you a little assignment. Go to www.theamericantribune.news. That's our Substack. Will does most of the writing on there. He does a lot of historical stuff, a lot of international stuff. But he wrote a piece about 6 months ago. You can do the little search bar, and you can search for the Ilhan Omar story. But go read it, because Todd and I are from Minnesota. And when Will wrote that article, Todd, do you remember what you thought when you first read that?
I mean, I'll just connect it to Tim Walz when he ran for vice president. Local Minnesotans with conservative leanings, we had no idea just how corrupt Tim Walz was. Same thing with Ilhan Omar, again, in our own backyard, representing the state, had no idea. Jason, do you want to spoil the ending, or do you want them to go read for themselves to figure out just how awful her family is?
All right. I'm going to give a little preview, and actually I can drop it in just the Rumble chat.
Okay.
Over on the Rumble channel. I can link to the Substack. Folks, that Substack's where we put some of the more spicy stuff too. Will's writing isn't for everybody, because Will's like probably one of the smartest humans on earth. And like every time I read it, he does a lot of research. Kid just got a law degree. But yeah, so Ilhan Omar's dad served in the genocidal regime in Somalia. And I'll get the regime mixed up, so you'll have to go read the article. And they got overthrown by the CIA because they were like awful, killing people, doing all sorts of bad stuff. He was one of the enforcers for that regime. So that's how she became a refugee is because after they overthrew the government, her dad had to go on the run because he was one of the big shots doing these awful things to the people in Somalia. So Ilhan Omar's dad was the reason she was a refugee. She was a child of one of the leaders of an overthrown regime, which blows me. Oh my God, we just got an order with Todd 10.
What a day. Hey, Todd 10, folks, splitrockcoffee.com. Whoever put the order in, thank you so much for supporting our show. Thanks so much for supporting Paul Reese over at Split Rock Coffee.
Giddy up.
Story. Imagine being responsible for the death of your fellow countrymen, and then when they get mad at you, like, help me, I'm a refugee.
But it's funny when you think of the context of that. So there's this strong man leading Somalia, and her dad's one of the enforcers that has to go on the run. And Will Stuff, like I say, when you read it, he like cites to everything. Like he writes it kind of like a lawyer would. And it's funny, he'll have me proofread and I'll be like, you got to dumb it down for us boomers. But it, like when I first read this, I'm like, no way. I heard that. I heard like about her brother and how they gamed the system, but I didn't know why she was a refugee. And I'm like, this is the most insane thing that I've ever seen. So,
and that's just half of the Ilhan Omar stuff, because what's coming out now, one day we'll have to do a dedicated Ilhan show where she talks about just her hatred of white people in this country. But all the stuff circulating about fraud and ballot harvesting and the rings of crime that she's part of or allegedly part of, it's absolutely wild stuff here.
Yeah, Dee read the article, mind-blowing. And I got to say, it's kind of one of those funny things. The longer Todd and I do this media content creation, it blows you away because we're both from Minnesota. Like, I've lived here virtually my whole life. I spent like 5-6 years living in other states for work. But I've been back in Minnesota now for like 20 years. And the Ilhan Omar origin story was never touched by the media in Minnesota, which you would think that would come up. And it was funny when Will wrote about it. He's from over on the East Coast in like Georgia or whatnot. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. But yeah, no, turns out you can go read about it over on our Substack.
Yeah. Jason, I just want to get a shout out to Nina over on Facebook. Nina's been part of my show for a little bit here. So thanks for joining our other podcast, Freedom from the Press, Nina. Yeah, Omar shouldn't even be in office, hates this country and all of its citizens. I mean, she's on record saying, I'm here to represent the interests of Somalia, and Somalia's back in my home country. But yeah, Marcy's going to go on there and question Elon Musk's allegiances, as she has a congressman colleague in the same party saying, like, I'm here to help out Somalia.
Right. Oh, it's crazy. Right, do we go to Scott Jennings now?
We got one final clip for you today, folks. This is Scott Jennings on CNN doing the Lord's work. I think he's going to get a Presidential Medal of Freedom at the end of Trump's term because he is out there single-handedly, a one-man wrecking ball of these woke, dem, false narratives. Pretty astounding exchange here. I'll set it up just a second and we'll play the clip here. It's a little bit longer. He's going to listen to Dems make their case about why Donald Trump's a bad guy for exposing corruption. They'll say their piece. He's going to ask back, just so I understand, this is what you're saying, and then they completely melt down. How dare you use their own words in a conversation with them? So pretty wild moment here. Let's take a watch.
Bill, for a moment, that DOGE is not about cutting money, right? It's not about spending. It's about shrinking government so that it'll be too...
Can I just say, too, how bad is it when you first see the looks and mannerisms, you know exactly what they're going to say.
I know everything this person thinks.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm like in his brain. All right. Sorry.
Is in this.
Oh, Todd.
Why would the government stop Trump? Isn't he the head of the government? You're saying the government would be too small to stop Trump. If Trump's the president, why would the government, the bureaucracy, be actively trying to stop him?
Because they want to shredding the Constitution and creating an authoritarian dictatorship. That's why.
And no matter who is in office, I'm going to hold them accountable. But more importantly, I'm going to make sure the government is working for the American people.
Both of you made an interesting point, which is that your view is that Trump is shredding the Constitution. I'd like to hear more about that. But that it seems to me that you all both believe that the unelected part of our government, the bureaucracy, has a responsibility to resist the political leadership. Is that your view?
That's not actually
That's
what
not
we
at all
said. We
what I
said they
said.
are
Yeah, it is.
upholding the Constitution, the principles of the Constitution, and at times
How
that we
is
have
Trump
seen.
shredding the Constitution?
My God, he's like. Should
I
we
mean,
go to-
seriously,
He
do we
doesn't
have to
believe in
give
the
you a
balance of
civics
power,
lesson
Scott.
that we have?
I don't know,
we put all power in the executive
How is
branch.
holding the
The
government-
legislative branch, the FBI. Now we're in control of the military. We're
Yes.
silencing media.
Commander-in-chief,
This
head
is
of
what
the
you
military.
do
It's a
in
great
a
point of
dictatorship.
Are
This
you
is not.
suggesting that the president is not the commander-in-chief of the military?
I am suggesting that the president is going to put in charge somebody who is going to contravene the Constitution. And at some near point, this conversation will look very silly for you because it will be obvious. And right now, you're
Wait,
gaslighting.
he's gonna
but when we
put-
get to the actual
He's
rubber
gonna
of the
put-
road of
I'm
this,
sorry.
it will be clear.
I'm interested in this conversation. He's going to put someone in charge who will contravene the Constitution. Like who? What do you mean by that? The president is in charge of the military, is he not? You said he's going to put someone in charge of the military?
The president is in charge of the military. That is how it works.
He was elected president. We, according to the Constitution, vest all executive authority in a president. And the concept that the military should be an independent agency or that the bureaucracy should resist the political leadership of this government is extraordinarily dangerous.
That's what we said. That's just straw
not what
man.
we said.
It's ridiculous.
Sometimes we use the R word, and that's not fair to people that are actually like low IQ. That's not fair to them. That's not their fault that they're low IQ. We do them a disservice by labeling these absolute morons that way because, my God.
I got to say, okay, I apologize for the rant. This might be the oxy talking, but those idiots are actually brought on a CNN panel and treated like an expert. And like Scott Jennings, who I like, I don't know if I trust him all the way yet. He makes some great sound clips, but he makes the point Donald Trump was elected president, so he is in charge of the military. He gets to make all decisions about the military. This is just a fact, folks. And these folks are arguing that somebody else other than the commander-in-chief should be in charge of the military. Like, that is unconstitutional as could be. And they sneer at you like, you don't understand the Constitution, blah, blah, blah. And the point Jennings is making is like, wait a second. Like, if we hire a new CEO for a company, they're in charge of that whole company. They get to say what they say goes. If you are arguing against the very, it just doesn't make sense. Like,
well, Jason,
no unelected people should be in charge.
This is after Hegseth got confirmed. So when this conversation takes place, Pete Hegseth is already the defense secretary. Like, Trump's going to put in somebody else to be in charge of the military? I don't even know what that would look like.
Right.
Like, yeah, Pete Hegseth is the SecDef. Trump's the commander-in-chief. That's how this works.
Right. Well, and it's interesting, too, because the latest thing, and it's grabbing some traction with the fringe of the left, I hate to say it, family and friend members are falling for it, where they're like, Donald Trump is Hitler. We're in 1930 Germany. And it's truly remarkable how brain dead these people are and just how brainwashed they are to think that way. But like that guy on CNN and the other panelists, like either they're completely lying through their teeth or they're completely delusional. Maybe it's both. But yeah, no, the executive is in charge of the military, the FBI, like all that stuff. What they say goes. And it's interesting, kind of like the Jeffrey Epstein thing. One thing that's brewing is that the FBI doesn't want to report to Pam Bondi, who's their boss, about what's going on. And so you have these unelected bureaucrats who they think don't have to run with the government. And Democrats suddenly, every time Joe Biden did things like this, like Joe Biden purged a bunch of Trump nominees, Joe Biden purged a bunch of Trump people from the military. They did the vaccine thing, which purged out a lot of America First people from the military. And you do all those things and like they got no problem with it. But as soon as the other side does that, which is in their authority to do, like we didn't like that he was doing it, but it was his right to do it. We never made the argument he wasn't entitled to. And like the left, it's like you don't get to disagree with us or disagree with our policy. The other thing that's funny is since the 50s, the party that has continued to extend the powers of the presidency is the Democrat Party. They have continued to expand that office and expand that office and expand that office. And Republican presidents have tried to stick to the original framing of the presidency and said, no, the presidency, we're only supposed to do this. Meanwhile, Democrats do all this stuff. Like, how many times did Joe Biden try to get student loan forgiveness through? Like 20. And he did all sorts of stuff, the Green New Deal stuff, executive orders, all these things. Donald Trump is the first president that I've seen in my lifetime on the Republican side that actually has used the same powers that the Democrats have been slowly creeping on. And Democrats don't like it. Well, welcome to the party, folks. I hope that at the end of Trump term 1, we redefine what a president is able to do, and we limit that to what it was originally intended. I hope that Congress is actually responsible for passing a budget. I hope that all those things happen when we return to constitutional norms. But right now, you're seeing Republicans living in the Democrat norms. And the example I use is, like, we play football politically, right? And unfortunately, the Democrats learned the forward pass, and the Republicans said, we're not going to do the forward pass. Forward pass isn't what was originally intended for the game. And that's why Republicans continue losing. But now that Republicans are saying, okay, we'll do the forward pass too, Democrats are losing their mind. I hope that makes sense.
Makes perfect sense. I guess my last comment too, though, again, if you're a Democrat, and I'm going to frame this question up for our Democrat friends, family members, neighbors, members of our church, if you're nodding your head at these, I don't even know what these Muppets on the CNN panel, you're like, yes, we need the unelected bureaucracy to keep the president in check. Just understand, you're the party that wants to save democracy by having an unelected bureaucracy, an unaccountable bureaucracy do what's in its own self-interest, which in this case ignores the will of the American people, i.e. Our democracy. Donald Trump has a mandate. You're saying you want to ignore all of that because unelected bureaucrats, the so-called experts, the lady that we saw at that town hall, that is who government is. Frumpy, middle-aged women with no real-life skills. That's who you're defending right now. That's who you want to stand up to Donald Trump. Just so we're clear on this, that's what you're defending. You want an unelected bureaucracy, and you think that's democratic?
Well, and
help me understand.
And I got to say, too, back to that woman, Todd. So we work with a lot of different people. Can you imagine working with her on the American Tribune?
She would not be invited to work for the American Tribune. I would probably start a new company and say, good luck, Jason.
Yeah, I got to say, it's funny because, and this is an interesting dynamic between women and men and male-dominated businesses or whatnot. And some women can get along with it. Like, my wife and I play the stupid game Pokemon Go. And like when we go play Pokemon Go, one of my favorite, like when we get together with like Mike and some other buddies, Mike who works with us on the Tribune, like we all the boys derive the most joy when their buddies derive pain. So like when somebody misses something or failed to get something, like that brings us the greatest joy in our life. Whereas Jen, like, oh, I feel bad. Meanwhile, we're mocking and ridiculing each other. Like in the morning when we do recaps this morning, we share Epoch Times articles on some of our Facebook pages. And Jackson, the new guy, I was asking him, like, boy, you sure suck worse than the last guy used to. Like, that was just a morning normal communication. Like, what's going on with this? Are you an idiot? Like, what? And his response isn't to go cry in the corner. It's like, oh, crap, I got called out on my job. You know what I mean? And conversely, when we win, we like, oh, my God, look, Todd, we had a huge day. Rah, rah, rah. But like, part of why we're successful is we are brutally honest with each other and we hold each other accountable and we push each other. And when something works, we commend it. When something fails, we don't. Can you imagine that woke lady, like surviving one morning of our chat when she's getting immediate feedback on how idiotic she is?
You guys are so mean. What do you mean I'm accountable to you guys? What do you mean I have to do work every day?
Right. Yeah. Oh, and Kev, he did shout out one important thing too, which Todd, we haven't even really talked about this. They're pushing Greg Jennings to run for the Mitch McConnell seat.
Scott Jennings? This guy right here?
Yeah, Scott Jennings.
I mean, I don't know anything. I like his sound bites. I was kind of being facetious when I said he should get a Presidential Medal of Freedom really for bravery for enduring CNN. I don't know anything else about him other than what I see on these clips. I am going to be agnostic on that point then right now.
Yeah, I got to say, it's too new for me. I saw Thomas Massey's looking to potentially run for that seat. And Massey, I agree with probably 70% of the time, 30% of the time I disagree with him. But I think he is a legitimate dude and an American going up there and not like serving how he thinks he serves best, not bought off by somebody. So like I even have my Thomas Massey debt badge. Bought one of those for my stepson this week. He was so happy. He came by for dinner and I'm like, hey, look what I got you. He's like, that's awesome. But yeah, Massey, like right now he's opposing the budgets. And even though it's making Trump mad, like I can still respect that for Massey. But I'd be curious to see Massey run. Scott Jennings feels too much like a
like, where did he
plan.
come from? He just came out of nowhere. We're supposed to all like him. You know, he looks good opposed to these Muppet losers on CNN. Yeah,
right.
I mean, Kevin's saying he's a Mitch guy. I worked for him. I think Jennings got to start in the Bush administration. Not that, you know, that means everyone that worked with Bush is a Rhino sellout. I don't know. It seems a little too convenient. He's got the slicked hair gel. You know, I don't know. I don't like it. I'm
getting Paul Ryan vibes.
Yeah.
Or actually, maybe more Trey Gowdy vibes.
There's a
like,
good one.
Can I say, was there a bigger disappointment than Trey Gowdy?
He sounded really good in hearings, though.
Oh, my God. I got to say, I wish we were running our business back in the Trey Gowdy days. We would have made so many Trey Gowdy videos.
His
and
clips
like
were incredible. He's like a Chip Roy. He said all of the right things with passion and energy, and then you're just like, well, hold on a second. How are you voting?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Chip Roy. Nobody gives us better speech than Chip Roy, and nobody follows through less effectively than Chip Roy. All right, man. Well, I got to say a couple things as we wrap up here too, Todd. Zelensky is that we can find the video of it, but he's at the White House as we speak. What do you think of that?
I mean, I said in part I voted for Donald Trump to bring peace around the world. Trump is the most pro-peace president of any of our lifetimes. So the war will come to a close in these 4 years, I have no doubt. I imagine right now Zelensky is not liking what he's hearing. This conversation's only going in one direction. Trump will extract exactly what he wants out of him. And then if I'm Zelensky, I'm probably asking for a safe harbor because I don't know how that dude makes it once the U.S. assistance backs away.
Yeah, I got to say, just watching some of the videos, and it was just happening when we were on the show. But we've covered a lot of the Russia-Ukraine stuff. You know, I think Ukraine was one of the most corrupt countries in the world. Everybody agreed on that. You know, the CIA went in there, ran a color revolution, overthrew the government. And then the push was always to get Ukraine into NATO. And if they're into NATO, we get to put NATO troops in there and we get to have nuclear weapons on Russia's border, which we wouldn't agree with. Now, don't get me wrong. Russia wants that Ukraine Western land. They want access to the sea on the Crimean Peninsula. They want all the farmland. That farmland is the breadbasket of Europe. So like Putin's interests are, he wants that land too. There's a lot of ethnic Russians that live in that land. So it would almost make sense that like we arbitrarily drew a line when we created Ukraine. Turns out that line had a lot of people that, you know, align more with Russia. But all that's kind of water under the bridge. The fact of the matter is Russia took that land and they're not giving it back. So unless we're going to send American troops over to go get that land back, it's not going to happen. It was the biggest money laundering operation ever. We've broke down the Democrats and guys like the Vindmans who made money, the military industrial. We've played videos on this show where congressmen are bragging about how that money is going to U.S. businesses to make bombs, but they have decimated a generation of Ukrainians. And I just want peace. And I'll be honest, Donald Trump negotiating for mineral rights, there's rumors that he's getting like a 50% cut for the U.S. of the mineral rights in Ukraine. I love that because I am sick of our tax dollars going to all these countries for no net benefit to us. And you know what? If we're going to go send $500 million to a country, we deserve a cut. We deserve some back end. We deserve something. Just like you and me and everybody watching the show, like if you're giving somebody money, you're expecting some services in return. So I think that's great. I think you're right, though. I think once this war comes down and they're forced to have an election because they haven't had an election because they were at war, which, by the way, we had an election during the Civil War. So for those who are saying, oh, they can't, like, whatever. But yeah, I think Zelensky's going to go on the run. I think it's going to be amazing.
Well, it sounds like he has a lot of houses to choose from around the world, so I don't feel bad for Zelensky. But man, I wouldn't want to be him right now either. Jason, on our way out the door, we got Big Bad chiming in. Thanks for hopping in the last second, Big Bad. I think catching up on our previous Pam Bondi conversation about the Epstein files. Yeah, not a good look. I don't know what to say. Not a good look.
Yeah, we were talking. I don't know if I'm quite taking Big Bad stance that Bondi needs to be fired. Like, I'm willing to give her a shot, but it was a pretty big screw up.
All right. With that being said, though, I feel bad kicking end of the show here as Big Bad joins us here. But I think the whole crew minus Fally showed up, and we got Jason, a lot of shout outs today. Robert over on YouTube giving us $2. I think Dee Dee subscribed over on Rumble. Folks, if you're on Rumble, you're listening right now still, you can go ahead and subscribe. I think it's $5 a month. We opened up, just to celebrate, we opened up our Rumble exclusive to our Facebook audience today. It's kind of a little sneak peek at what we do every Friday in the last half hour. So if you were watching on Facebook today, you stuck around, consider heading over to Rumble, search out the American Tribune, follow the channel, and we go live every Friday at 10 a.m. Central.
Yeah, and I will say, too, on Tuesday, Thursday, Todd does a show on the American Tribune Live. So, like, shout out to that. I do the Wayne Dupree podcast Monday through Thursday. Although someday I'm getting vibes from Wayne that it feels like, I don't know, he's in a weird spot. So we'll have to see what ends up coming out of that. But I think the best idea that we had today is someday we're going to have to figure out a Rumble subscriber show where, like, anybody who subscribes to this channel can subscribe down below. We do like little split screens with the cameras. We could send them like their little StreamYard links, try to figure it out and do like a little show where we have people like because Big Bad, wouldn't you love to have him or Kev or, you know, K-Gun Girl like hopping on, just giving their 5-minute take on something? Like, I think it'd be awesome. And
I think
honestly,
awesome.
that's my favorite. We do a lot of things in our business that we make money on. We don't make a lot of money on this, so what support you guys give us, we really appreciate. But we do it because we think it's important and we love hanging out with you guys.
Yeah, I jokingly say, but I mean it. Like, this is my favorite hour of the week. I love when the theme song comes up. I love connecting with everybody here. This is a great hour and a half we spend with you all.
Yeah, and I will say the one thing, and they're going on about it in the chat, is talking about Pam. She gave them like a deadline to respond. I'll be honest, Todd. You know what I want to see? I want to see her, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino hopping in the cars. I want to see the black SUVs pulling up to their headquarters, and I want to see them rolling in and saying, like, we're here. You didn't send us your stuff. We're here to take it. That's what I want to see.
And if
That's
they have
what I'm
to
hoping.
pick out the entire building saying, you guys all stand in the street and personally go through the laptops and the file cabinets, do it.
Right. Oh, man. Yeah, the guys are funny. Big Bad. That would be hilarious. Can you imagine? Like, Todd, we're going to have to put this pen to paper on this to figure out how to work. Like, do they connect with us through like the Twitter? Like, Twitter inbox is probably the easiest way.
Yeah, Rumble doesn't have any of that. I mean, we can give out our email. I check that daily, the American Tribune 2023 at gmail.com.
Right.
X is the easiest.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I got to say, connect with us on X. Start, like, if you don't have your X account, get your X account, send us a note. Todd and I'll find you. I'm at JRob from MN, and we'll have to, Todd, I'm thinking something's coming.
This is going to happen.
Yeah. And Kev, wait, see, these guys are so smart. Comey's daughter. Yeah. She's in charge of the New York chapter.
The good Ghislaine Maxwell trial. Comey's daughter did too.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I will say, shout out to Big Bad. He did reach out to make sure I was doing good after my surgery. And then I'm like, what's going on with all this Epstein stuff? And he's like, I just go on my timeline. And he had it all broken down for me. So shout out. But we have the best audience, Todd. I got to say.
Love our audience. And Kagan Girl says, I think you should all do this Monday through Thursday. I mean, we could do it every day of the week if the schedule opens up for it a little bit. So stay tuned, folks. I think we've been saying this for a while, but there will come a time when I think Wayne backs off the podcast space, and Jason and I are willing to enter into it every single day of the week. I think that'd be a blast.
Yeah, and Kevin, Wayne is in the part of the movie before the big finish, getting reserve charged up. Yeah, Wayne's ready. It's pretty interesting. We'll see His headspace, he bounces around a lot. It's kind of hard to follow. Whereas Todd and I are like living our most glorious life. Even the Epstein thing, we're like pretty forgiving of, even though it was a complete debacle. Like there's been so much other good that we love that.
I mean, big picture, we're still winning. That's awesome. Number 2, I don't lose sleep over this. Like, would it be nice? Yes. Am I disappointed? Yes. Does life go on? Yeah. I mean, I'm in a great mood every single day. I'm walking lighter. The water is sweeter. Like Trump's in office. Things are good, folks. Things are still good.
Yeah, and I got to say too, it's just so funny because when we like even out in the wild, like I was when I was getting my surgery prep going, I had the nurse say something like they was just talking about vacation and stuff she just got back from, because I was joking like I want to get all doped up, and she's like, yeah, half the world's crazy, and I'm like, which half? And she's like, oh, not us, we're the normal ones. I'm like, okay, yes.
Not us.
All right, well, let's get out of here, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks for the Rumble. Oh my God, DD just gave us a excuse me, gave us a tip over on the Rumble. We appreciate that. And yeah, for the Rumble followers too, like share your links and stuff on there. And like I say, connect with Todd and I. I'm at JRob from MN, and we'll find a way to make this viewer thing happen. Give us a little time. Take us a few weeks. We got to figure out some technology stuff, but I think that would be I think we're going to
make this happen. Yeah, we would need your folks' email or Twitter handle to share a link with you eventually. But we will get this set up. Find Jason at JRob from Minnesota. Let's make you the go-to, Jason, so we're not like split with the audience here. JRob from MN over on X. Follow him, message him, and we'll be sure to get some invites out and some information out in the next couple of weeks. I'm excited about this, Jason.
Oh yeah, and then Kevin Big Bad too. Hutch Bailey, who he does Cold War radio. His show tonight should be fire. Hutch used to be on Wayne's podcast with me. He's straight up fire. So, all right. On that note, guys, we'll see you.
Have a great weekend. We'll see you next Friday.
Week.